The drama surrounding the Cleveland Browns did not begin on the field, nor in the meeting rooms, nor even in the locker room where frustrated players shake their heads at another season slipping through their fingers. It began behind a door that most people inside the building will never walk through, a door guarded not by coaches or coordinators, but by executives, owners, and the kinds of decision-makers whose influence stretches far beyond game plans and playbooks. In that room, with the franchise spiraling into frustration and fan interest evaporating week by week, someone made a decision, one bold enough to jolt an entire organization, desperate enough to feel dangerous, and controversial enough to ignite a storm the Browns cannot easily outrun. That decision was swift, definitive, and delivered to the world through the tense voice of head coach Kevin Stefanski as he stood behind a podium he suddenly seemed far less comfortable occupying. Shedeur Sanders, fresh off his first NFL start, was now the quarterback moving forward. And the man he was replacing, Dillon Gabriel, who had just passed concussion protocol and expected to resume the role he'd earned, became the silent figure in a story that was no longer about football alone. The shift was dramatic enough on its surface, but beneath that surface lay something bigger, darker, and far more complicated than a simple evaluation of two players. The fingerprints on the decision pointed upward, beyond the coaching staff, past the general manager's office, all the way to the top of the organizational ladder where owner Jimmy Haslam has been quietly fighting his own battle. The battle against empty seats, sinking ticket prices, and a fan base that has grown tired of believing in promises that never deliver. The press conference made one thing abundantly clear. Stefanski had been handed a decision to relay, not one he had organically arrived at through the usual weeks of studying tape, analyzing practice reps, and collaborating with his staff. His voice carried the tone of a man whose authority had been nudged aside just enough to alter the natural order of an NFL franchise. He talked about Shedeur's poise, about his flashes of promise, about the importance of a quarterback doing whatever it takes to win. But threaded through his comments was a subtle resignation, the kind that comes from a leader accepting a choice he did not initiate, one he now must publicly defend. The context made everything even more suspicious. The Browns had just earned their first win of the season, a rare moment of relief in a year defined by disappointment. Shedeur, stepping in for an injured Gabriel, had played well enough, certainly well enough to spark conversation about potential. But in the NFL, you don't lose your starting job because you are momentarily sidelined by injury. You don't get relegated for being cautious with your health. And you don't get replaced permanently after missing a single week unless some larger agenda is at play. Yet that's exactly what happened, and the abruptness of it all did nothing to silence the whispers circulating throughout the league. It wasn't until an outside observer connected a few seemingly unrelateds that the truth began to take shape. Cleveland's ticket market had collapsed. Seats were being sold for next to nothing. Fans had disengaged to a level so extreme that even the organization itself could no longer pretend everything was fine. And suddenly, as if on cue, Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Sanders, college phenomenon, media magnate, was named the starter. The connection felt almost insultingly obvious. It didn't require conspiracy theories or hidden sources. It simply required paying attention. Jimmy Haslam has never been the type of owner to keep his hands off football matters, even when history has repeatedly shown that interference rarely leads to success. He is a businessman first and foremost, a man who studies numbers, trends, and revenue projections with the same intensity that coaches study film. When the numbers look bad, he reacts, not patiently or strategically, but impulsively, dramatically, and often recklessly. And this year, the numbers looked worse than they had in recent memory. So he did what he has always done. He inserted himself directly into the football side of the operation, leaving his coaches and players to navigate the fallout. Dillon Gabriel became the first casualty of that intervention. He had done nothing wrong, nothing to warrant being benched, nothing that suggested he was unfit to return to the starting role he had earned through competition and practice. But he had also done nothing to generate ticket sales, nothing to boost fan excitement, nothing to reignite the fading national interest surrounding the Browns. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, possessed something Gabriel never would, a recognizable name attached to a marketable legacy, one that comes with built-in attention, built-in curiosity, and built-in commercial appeal. Gabriel's demotion, announced without debate or explanation, became a moment that revealed just how fragile a player's place can be when decision-makers value storylines over substance. And Stefanski, knowing full well the implications, still carried out the announcement because his job required it, even if doing so chipped away at his own authority in the eyes of his players. The locker room felt the weight of that shift immediately. NFL athletes may not always reveal their thoughts publicly, but they're acutely aware of the dynamics shaping their careers. They know when a teammate is being benched for valid reasons, and they know when something about the situation doesn't add up. When they saw Gabriel, who had fought through protocols, rehabbed diligently, and never once complained, relegated to backup status without a genuine competition, many recognized the uncomfortable truth. This decision wasn't about winning games. It was about saving face, saving revenue, and saving the owners from facing the consequences of years of dysfunction. Inside the press conference, Stefanski tried to keep the focus on football. He praised the rookie class for their development. He analyzed the receivers' performances. He talked about practice tempo and preparation rhythms and the challenges of Thanksgiving week scheduling. But even as he did, he could not escape the fact that the most important decision of the week had already been made for him. The room sensed it. Reporters sensed it. And the brief flashes of frustration on Stefanski's face revealed that he sensed it too. Shedeur now steps into a spotlight he did not ask for, one that stretches beyond the usual pressure placed on a young quarterback. He isn't just tasked with reading defenses, managing the huddle, and executing plays. He is tasked with carrying the financial hopes of a franchise desperate to reignite fan interest. Every mistake he makes, every interception he throws, every missed read or late decision will be dissected through the lens of whether the decision was justified. And that's a burden no rookie should ever be forced to carry. It becomes even more complicated when you consider how defensive coordinators will treat him. They will blitz him relentlessly, force him into difficult reads, disguise coverages to prey on his inexperience. That is what veteran coaches do when they smell blood, and right now, Cleveland's quarterback room is bleeding from every angle. Stefanski knows it. The players know it. Even Shedeur himself likely knows it. But none of that stopped ownership from pushing him into the line of fire because the alternative, waiting, developing, building patience, does not sell tickets. The rest of the roster continues to operate under the shadow of this decision. When they hear Stefanski talk about Myles Garrett's all-around play, they hear a coach who still wants to do things the right way, who still values performance over popularity. When they hear him break down rookie development, they see a coach committed to process, growth, and culture. But when they see who is actually taking the snaps on Sunday, they see an organization that no longer walks the path it claims to value. That kind of cognitive dissonance can break a locker room from the inside. Jerry Jeudy's frustration, visible, undeniable, and barely concealed, felt like another symptom of that deeper imbalance. Players do not snap at the media because of one bad play or one tough game. They lash out when they sense instability above them, when decisions feel arbitrary, when the organization around them stops functioning like a unified structure. Jeudy's short, terse interactions weren't isolated moments. They were indicators of a team uneasy with the direction being forced upon them. What makes this story so painfully familiar is that Cleveland has lived through variations of it before. Ownership interference, flashy decisions, big promises, sudden collapses. Organizational dysfunction disguised as bold leadership. It's a cycle the Browns know intimately, and one that many hoped the franchise had finally begun to escape. Instead, this quarterback saga dragged them right back into that familiar abyss, where marketing takes precedence over merit and long-term stability is sacrificed for short-term buzz. What happens next will shape not just the season, but potentially the next several years of Browns football. If Shedeur Sanders succeeds, ownership will claim vision and victory. But even success will not erase the questions about how the decision was made, what it cost the franchise's integrity, or what precedent it sets for the future. And if Shedeur struggles, as many young quarterbacks do, the consequences could be catastrophic. The team risks alienating Gabriel, destabilizing Stefanski's leadership, shaking player confidence, and cementing a reputation that will make future coaching hires and free agent signings even more difficult. The fan base, ironically, sits at the center of this entire mess. Their frustration created the pressure that ownership reacted to, and yet they are the ones most likely to suffer the fallout. They've endured decades of disappointment, rebuilt hope again and again, and continue to show up even when the team gives them little reason to. But this time, the cracks are deeper. The apathy spreading through Cleveland isn't momentary disappointment. It's exhaustion. And when an organization responds to that exhaustion with superficial fixes instead of real change, the divide widens. The NFL world is watching too. Other franchises, executives, players, and coaches see what's happening in Cleveland. They see an owner making football decisions for business reasons. They see a coach being asked to defend choices he didn't make. They see players losing trust in leadership. And they will remember it all when the Browns come calling in the future. In the end, this saga isn't just about Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or Kevin Stefanski. It's about a franchise trapped in its own shadow, unable to break free from patterns that keep dragging it back into chaos. And unless something changes, truly changes, the Browns risk repeating this story year after year, each time expecting a different outcome, each time finding themselves in the same familiar storm.